this was a very innovative design. Among the features that were particularly interesting when it first appeared in the mid-30s, the so-called webbed wing, incorporating fuel tankage, which led to a considerable weight saving. Also, it's very clean, streamlined lines. You wouldn't necessarily think that looking at that big barn door of a wing as the aircraft banks in towards us, but this was a very aerodynamically efficient airframe. And it also had these retractable wingtip floats, which you can see retracted at the moment. When war broke out, no wonder it proved such an outstanding asset in almost all theatres, starting out in the Pacific, then in the Atlantic, and in the Indian Ocean. I think, Colin, it's in the Battle of the Atlantic that we particularly recall the exploits of RAF, Catalinas, and Canadian-built Cansos of the Royal Canadian Air Force, like this one, in particular.
Yes, indeed, what you're talking about there, of course, is the Battle of the Atlantic, and the fight against the Kriegsmarine, the U-boats that were causing so much collateral damage to the shipping, which was keeping us alive in the UK. And there was a gap in the middle which couldn't be bridged. However, this particular type of aircraft was able to achieve that. And really, one thing that Churchill said that he was afraid of during the Second World War were the U-boats. If they had strangled us, then it would have literally been all over for us. This particular aircraft certainly made a difference as far as the battle against the U-boats was concerned. And of course, it is an amphibian. It's not a flying boat. You think it's a flying boat, it is an amphibian. And it was not only the battle against the U-boats, but this was used widely for the rescue of downed airmen, well, around the coast, but particularly on the big raids into Europe. So from 2 points of view, if you were a submariner and you saw this, that's the last thing you wanted to see. But if you were a downed airman and you saw this, that was the first thing you would want to see.
Wingtip floats down, you can see on this pass, demonstrating its considerable agility for an aircraft of this size.
Yes, I heard you say earlier how agile it is in the air, and it doesn't look as though it should be.
No. Very elegant, but also very manoeuvrable, which was, of course, of great aid in the operational environments that we're talking about. That mid-Atlantic gap you mentioned, Colin, we shouldn't also forget the exploits of other types that were crucial in plugging it. Beforehand, U-boats and the Focke-Wulf Condor maritime aircraft had been able to roam around it, causing the havoc that you described. But apart from the Catalina, there were the short Sunderlands of the RAF, and also land-based types, the Consolidated Liberator particularly, and the Boeing Fortress, also were instrumental for coastal command. There we see the amphibious characteristics in evidence with undercarriage down once again. The blisters on the rear fuselage were originally of Hammer's guns for defensive armour, but they're actually outsized on this particular aircraft, having been fitted for an abortive use in previous ownership on African safaris.
Yes, I was going to suggest that they were oversized. But this particular aircraft does have a wartime heritage, doesn't it?
It does, yes, and the colour scheme, of course, is that of a, although this wasn't this exact aircraft, is that of one of the US Army Air Force's rescue OA-10A models. Relatively few of which ever made it to the European theatre because the war was coming to an end. Captains have always been in such demand in other theatres.
Yes.
But a few were operated late in the war by the 5th Emergency Rescue Squadron at Halesworth in Suffolk. And the aircraft depicted by this one, they missed pickup, which has been recreated on those. A sign of war.
Very appropriate to carry us.
As for this one, it was indeed built during wartime by Canadian vickers and served with the Royal Canadian Air Force and spent a long time with the province of Saskatchewan as a firefighting water bomber, a role in which many of these aircraft served post-military retirement. Acquired in the early 2000s for operation by plain sailing, who keep it here at Duxford, and it's an ownership group of shareholders. Own the aeroplane.
Time to time, shares do become available. Well, it's been a little while since the last share was advertised for sale, but there's something of the order of about £20,000 would have bought you a relatively small share in this aeroplane.